the RCA slides first, and maybe Mr. Jube, I just want to understand one or two things on the RCA slides, and then we can go to the MYPD 4. Maybe let's start with slide number 10. This is slide 10. And by the way, the ones that I have on my iPad, I haven't come out too clear. So, yeah, maybe this is slide 10. Sorry, apologies. Go to slide 14. Maybe start on that slide, and my first question relates to that slide. You see that that slide is almost trying to mimic what you say has happened. Where's Mr. Jube? I can't see. Oh, sorry. This slide is trying to mimic what would have happened because the volume supposed to have dropped, and I just want to see then how this, what this looks like in your actual RCA application. So you'll see that for convenience, your volumes drop 10%. You see that your assumption is your volume is 100 units sold. The 10% drop, the actual is 90. So we work on a 10% basis. And now in this example, as is expected, variable costs also drop 10%. So 10% of 30 is 3. So it drops to 27. And even when you had full perfect hindsight, you have the same sort of result, okay, where it would have been dropped. So the real principle that you should be getting out of this is your variable cost should drop at a similar rate or exactly the same rate as the drop in your volumes. And that's actually the beginning of the message on here. But if you go to slide number 1, this is slide number 1. Sorry, slide 5. And then just stop on that slide. You'll see that your revenue, and I know here we're not showing volumes, we're just showing the end amount, and I think obviously, when we look at this in detail, we'll have to clarify that. You'll see that your revenue has grown from 35 billion to 175 billion. The balance of 30 billion represents around just under 15%. 15% drop. But if you look at your primary energy costs, they dropped from the 81.6 billion to 85 billion, that's 6 billion. That drop is only 7%. Okay, so if you go back to the principle in the example that you gave, there's something is wrong there. Your costs should have dropped at exactly the same rate. And here we are even just talking primary energy costs. Should have dropped at exactly the same rate as the drop in revenue. But in this case, it's only half. Now, I know you may say it's complicated and that sort of thing. Unfortunately, there's a problem. And it may be reflecting other issues. So can you just explain why is that it's not the case, and why is it that you would be wanting to not for us to adjust fully for the reduction in volume. So that's the first thing that I just want to understand, and if you can just explain that first issue. And by the way, the same question relates to some of your operating costs. They are also not, they're dropping by around 8.9% and this sort of thing. And I know you may say some elements of them are fixed, and maybe we'll come to that as well. So that's the first issue I just want you to understand. The second issue I need to understand in your RCA application is how do you, in this application, how do you adjust for the impact of we start with poor execution by ESCOM in, say, capital expenditure. I know you indicated in the latest slides that rating agencies are indicating that that's one of the problems. Poor execution is not just operational execution, it's even in CapEx. Effectively, you're always seeing is a few things. For starters, there's delay. Plans were supposed to come in on a certain date during MYPD period. They never came back. They were never commissioned on the date that they were supposed to be commissioned. So delays in commissioning. The second issue would be huge overspending in CapEx. So if you look at the original in application, what you plan to spend on Medupi, Brazil, and all these new plants, and what you actually spend, there's a big difference. So now, one of the issues that arises out of this is that you then have, you don't get the benefits of the efficiencies that we were expecting to get from new plant, because they probably would have come in with higher energy availability factors in there. So the second question I just need to understand is that to the extent that those plants, the poor execution resulted in plant not being available, and then as a result we had load shedding, all those sort of stuff, and so the association of reducing revenue, how are these numbers adjusted for that? How do you account for poor CapEx execution in this RCA? And maybe the next thing which is related to that, and I think just even on the existing plant, not just on the new plant is supposed to commission, just on the existing plant, your energy availability factors are much lower than what we are planning to do, and how has the effect of that in reduced volumes impacted your RCA application? How are you adjusting for that? But what's also critical though is market signal. You talk about fixed costs, and you're saying that it's almost like there's an expectation that you're going to run operations business as usual because you're going to be recovering your fixed costs through the tariff. So by that I mean, if you see that you've had years of reducing demand on your product, over a 5-year period, why is it that management is not able to take decisions, perhaps that are not influenced by methodology? Maybe there is a problem with methodology because it doesn't encourage you to take the correct management decision. Because the question that I really want to ask is, why is it that you're not able to go and reduce capacity, shut down setting up the plants and that sort of thing when your revenue decrease? And is there a fraud in our methodology? Why is it that it encourages you to just keep running or your plant or having the plant in operation even when sales have dropped. So I'm pleased if you can just explain some of those, because one, a private sector company would go and reduce capacity when demand drops. And some of these costs that are supposed to be fixed over a 5-year period, you start making adjustments. So these are some just my questions just on the RCA. I know we did ask you to have a look at our reason for decisions for the other 4 years. We're hoping that you take into account some of the workings and calculations that we've done to indicate what you think the adjustment should be if you applied some of those principles. So that's the RCA. If you go to the slides dealing with the MYPD 4, again, just bear with me. If somebody can maybe just come and open it. Perhaps maybe let's start on slide 8. And the one that shows EBITDA go up. It's right at the beginning. The one that shows the red arrows and green arrows before that.
We're going down, go up.
We're going down, we must go up, right at the beginning. Oh, sorry, it could be slide 5. I don't know this thing. Yeah, and let's start just on this slide, because obviously here we're trying to focus on debt, and some of the questions that maybe are asked just on the RCA. Perhaps we can start with those, and you can then explain how this affects even this MYPD application. And start with the capex. Let's start with the capital overspend, capex overspend. How has the overspend in capex in the new build affected your debt position? You're indicating that your borrowing is close to 419 billion, you're still spending on your build, and how has the new build, the huge overspending and delays, affected your borrowings? And if you really think about what the legislation says we must do as a regulator, we're supposed to allow you to recover at the cost of an efficient regulator, and that includes capex. So if what you do is your plant comes online late, many years later than was scheduled, and the huge overspending, and suddenly you borrow because of the huge overspending, and suddenly you're in a financial crisis, how is it that we want the public to pay for that overspending in the tariff? Should the capital efficiency in fact not be, or the capital inefficiency not be borne by the organization or the shareholder is opposed to the poor South African public? And to what extent has it affected the levels of your debt? But if you go to this EBITDA, EBITDA is actually the starting point in your cash generating ability. And you see you're saying your EBITDA margin has been decreasing, is now it's gone to 28. September last year it was 35. I know in your financials you're hoping to get it back to 35% or something of that sort. Do you accept that the EBITDA is not just is caused by the tariff that you get, that in fact a big portion of it, the expense portion of it, is a reflection of how you run your plant, how you run your operations? For instance, if you go and use huge OCGTs and your operating cost of primary energy happens to be higher, your EBITDA margins will be lower. If you don't look after your costs, EBITDA margins will be lower. Why is it that you seem to be putting so much emphasis on tariff and very little emphasis on reducing costs? And by the way, I know in your application you indicate that your costs are reducing either close to inflation or slightly below inflation in certain cases. But that is not what is expected. What is expected is that the cost should be decreasing, because you're facing an environment where sales volumes have dropped. Sales volumes have dropped. So we should be expecting you to cut in your operations in line with the reduced volumes. But in your MYPD application, we're still seeing everything, all the operating costs increasing. And and are you going to be achieving this EBITDA margin? And why is it that you're expecting all this to come from tariff? You should be really cutting costs significantly. So you can't say, oh, labor costs are only going up by this percentage. You should be saying, on a per megawatt basis, we should be having so many staff members per megawatt, and how many are we reducing so that we are in line with international ratios. And maybe you need to come and show us those benchmarks on how some of those costs on a comparable basis compared to international benchmarks and where those costs should be. But EBITDA is under your control. It's not just the revenue that comes from the public. The next issue that I just want to understand is so I couldn't see your slide properly, so you just bear with me. If you go to, I think the next slide in terms of the increase in your debt, please can you split the element that leads to capex and capex overspend? This would be, what is that slide? What the slide, even the slide that follows. The next slide. So I don't know what the numbers are. Just indicate in that forecast, because your debt is increasing, how much is it arises out of capex and how much arises out of you're running OCGTs and operational requirements and that sort of thing. Please go to the next one. I just want to understand the next one. Yeah, maybe let's stop on that one for now. Maybe just a once technical question on the slide. You're saying that you've got the debt that you're getting from your foreign counterparts is about 55% in November last year. I think what would have been useful to see the currency in which the debt is. And are you able to indicate to us in what currency that debt is? Because there's certain debt that although you get from foreign operations, are they rand-denominated debt or hard currency denominated debt? Because I know you tried to in your explanation, it just wasn't clear. What portion is hard currency denominated debt, as opposed to debt that you're getting from DFIs. And you also make statements that none of your debt is secured over assets. And then I saw when I read your financial statements, there's a statement on your Eurobonds, zero coupon, your Eurobonds, that it's in fact, it says it's got the right of first charge against revenue and assets of ESCOM in terms of Section 7 of ESCOM Convention Act. So can you just confirm whether the statement is true? That the statements that you have in your financial statements, indeed, how does it differ from what you're saying that your debt is not secured by this? But what would have been most useful, though, is you almost seem to be indicating that every time you go and you refinance your facilities, that is almost like a crime of a bad investment decision and that sort of thing. And you made an example that, and I know it's in the maturity profile, and maybe you can go to the next slide, you show the maturity profile. And you said the maturity profile is around 7 years, and you planned the assets you're buying a good 40-year period. So, if you're not able to raise 40-year bonds, as an example, and the market is able to give you 10-year bonds, or whatever the case is, 30-year bonds, there's no crime in going and refinancing it. But why is it that you seem to explain it as if rolling over the debt to actually get the debt to align with the nature of your business. You're an infrastructure business. And in fact, the returns, you're not expected to be making returns over short periods of time. And 7 years is certainly too short. And this happens globally. And if your instruments are short dated, it's an expectation that part of a debt management requires refinancing the debt. But the manner in which you seem to be painting the picture is that it's a problem to be refinancing the debt to meet your, the asset life. And therefore, you seem to be lumping all this debt, wanting to recover all of this from tariff. You see, my biggest issue is why is the debt management suddenly translating to a tariff issue? The fact that the maturity profile is 7 years, why are you wanting the correction of the maturity profile not be a debt management decision, as opposed to a tariff decision? Why are you moving the problem of managing ESCOM onto the poor consumers? And even in an environment where you don't have access to the debt markets, and the markets are not giving you long dated debt and that sort of thing. So if you can just explain that to us. And then the next issue, maybe if you go to the next slide. The first bullet point when you said no specific ESCOM asset has been held as collateral. There's a second issue that I just wanted to understand. You seem to be, as ESCOM, favoring almost, let's just call it balance sheet financing. Your liquidity, you're not listed on stock markets, you can't raise equity. Well, you should be able to raise equity from a shareholder, you don't. And then you fund everything by debt. And maybe a few questions related to this. The guarantee that is issued by a government of 350 per year is not some sort of quasi equity. And I know legally, and I'm not looking for a legal question, And I give an answer that says, no, it is a guarantee. Because technically, whenever companies go on huge capital expansion programs, they don't get all the money from financial markets in terms of debt. Sometimes they go equity. In fact, they do a combination of both. Now, government is not injecting capital. What it does is give you guarantees. So it's almost like giving you almost a quasi-equity, which is supposed to pay down. And perhaps the return should be lower because the equity return should be lower. The first question that I'm asking is, should that 50 billion government guarantee not be looked at as almost a substitute for equity that you should be injecting? But the second issue is why, can you just explain why is it you're limiting your financing options? There's also all sorts of other asset-backed financing that you could get access to. And it seems to be a policy, according to what I hear you say, especially when you say specific customer asset has collateral, whatever the case is. So you don't get access to project finance, vendor finance, and why is it that you're limiting all your access to other financing options? Maybe I'll give an example, maybe you can explain why other countries do it and you don't. Say the UK, when they're being, and I know I should be using the nuclear issue, but the nuclear power plants, they're getting the Chinese, who are the vendors, to give them data finance. Now, you get access to all sorts of funding options. You have now limited yourself to only the few that you listed there, primarily loans and bonds. And why is there any reason why you've chosen to do it on that basis? And why is it that you're cutting yourself off from all sorts of financing options that could otherwise become available to you, which other utilities in other countries are using? And I use the UK with their funding of some of the nuclear power plants, which are paid by the vendors. It's a vendor finance by the guys who are manufacturing plants, and maybe just I'll come and ask other questions, and maybe during the second round I'll just go quickly through the rest of these other ones. The issue of material adverse event, what you call it material adverse condition. Can you give us an extract from your financing documents that defines it? Because the way in which you defined it, because the way you define it is that revenue is not sufficient to cover your costs. Almost like saying, if you're not getting the tariff, it's a suddenly material adverse effect or you use condition. Normally they call it material adverse event in the legal document that I've seen. But let's say it's a material adverse condition. The revenue is not sufficient to cover costs. Can we just see a copy of it? Because it just doesn't make sense that any financial institution should be doing that. And why is it that they haven't called all your debt on your facilities if that is the case? And because you keep asking for costs that we think are not efficiently incurred, and therefore we deny those costs, whether it's capex or operation costs, and you spend it anyway, and try and claim them through RCA. And so if this was the case, then that material adverse condition must have happened. But please give us just a copy of that definition in the clause so that we can look at this. And maybe just for the rating agencies, where you talk about rating agencies. In your financial statements, you made a statement, and I'll just read it out to you quickly, and then maybe you can just put it in context, is what you just said to us today. And this is page 5 of your annual report for last financial year, 31 March 2018. And it's a key paragraph. It says the recent downgrades, and I'm reading from your director's report. It says the recent downgrades of Exxon ratings, credit rating by Standard & Poor's, Fitch and Moody's indicate that it will take time for the group's plans to ensure longer-term business and financial sustainability to take effect, despite the recent improvements in corporate governance and liquidity. But this is the critical elements. You say the group's debt portfolio was not adversely affected by the downgrades. You say as it did not result in any prepayment requirements, pricing adjustments, or potential provisions of government guarantees. I think what you meant is the calling of government guarantees. And then you're saying the current local and international market conditions remain conducive for funding, even though the group may be impacted by increasing funding costs in the future. Now, the picture that you've painted today seems to indicate that, in fact, you've been locked out of capital markets. You're not able to raise capital unless the tariff goes up and things of that nature. And in fact, all the slides of rating agencies seem to put a lot of emphasis. And maybe let's go to that slide just so we can show it. I think it's slide 17. Yeah, if you look at that slide, you seem to be focusing quite a lot on tariffs and not being cost effective. And by the way, this issue of tariff being cost effective, perhaps we must engage at some point, because at utility level, meaning at your ESCOM level, we are giving you costs that we believe, but purely limited costs that's supposed to cover your cost of producing the electricity. The legislation doesn't say you can be as inefficient as you want and then the public must just pay. Our formula allows you to recover the costs. And perhaps when you look at cross-subsidization and perhaps at customer level, this cost reflective tariff may be an issue. But rating agencies are highlighting the issues that, for instance, I've just spoken about: execution and operational risks. And this is within management's control. There's serious execution problems with large capital investments. There's serious execution issues, even operationally. We're having load shedding. We just had load shedding in December. In an environment where we're supposed to have excess capacity. And this is what the rating agencies are talking about. Should the focus not proportionately be on what ESCOM can do to reduce those execution risks, as opposed to just focusing on tariff as a solution? And the poor South African public paying for inefficiencies of ESCOM, even some of the efficiencies that result in increasing debt levels. So perhaps if you can, I'll ask other questions later.
All right, ESCOM, can you please then provide responses? We'll have a second round of questions. We have a second round of questions. I think that also can benefit from the responses.
So, thank you, Chief. I think I'll just start with some of them and maybe Mr. Foley's first question on the sales forecasting process. MYPD, MYPD 4 and the 1 year application, we will do the detail of the sales forecasting process and the key assumptions around customers coming online, customers that are coming off, etc. But overall, my understanding that ISCOM's approach of getting the forecast, it's basically the same as going to the key customers, but that detail will be provided, I think if not on Friday, but by Monday, the sales forecast will be provided and the detail around it. The debt profile, maybe Andre can deal with that and the maturity of the 591.
Also, yeah, the assumption was the 11% increase. So just to Mr. Foley's question on the investor, I think the emphasis there is largely what we reflected here was basically what the rating agencies are telling us, and we are sharing that with the audience in terms of when we do engage with them and they do assess Eskom's credit profile. On the question from the gentleman around, and I wasn't clear, the question relates to debt to GDP. The question was
yes, it is.
Yeah, so I mean, what we shared there was in government's debt to GDP, if you add our guarantees to it, what does it do to the overall debt to GDP? And I think government has got a target or a level of 60% where it starts getting uncomfortable for them from a ratings perspective. I don't know if that's the question, because your question was debt increase and capital execution and how it relates to debt to GDP.
Yeah, basically the scenario that you gave is that obviously the amount of debt that we have also impacts on the macro scenario. However, my question was, should then the tariff be trying to chase, the debt that we have, so that you then impact positively on the economy?
So in essence, I think the tariff should enable Eskom to rely less on debt markets, and that inadvertently, or the positive loop of that obviously is that you rely less on debt capital markets. It's an improvement on your debt ratios and an improvement on the government's debt ratios. And then on the macros, I think the point that I made, and probably I was not able to explain well. The issue, the reference to a macros, and Mr. Modise also commented on it. In some of these things, they use these two clauses interchangeably, the material adverse conditions, material adverse effect. And the point that I made there is that if you have a tariff that continues to be insufficient, it may result in Eskom basically being unable to either run its operations or service its debt. I mean, it's a combination of that. So basically, Eskom collapses. That's the point. And that is the situation where you will find. And we have not, I think there was a question related to the macros as well, that did we model a particular level? We did not model a particular level. I was merely sharing with the audience some of the contentious and challenging clauses that we have in our loan agreements. I think also to Mr. Modise's question around the macros, we glad to share that with you. We can provide an extract of that. The other question on the regulatory framework and the negative consequence of that, again, we are relaying it's public information, what rating agencies, when they assess the financial position of Eskom, they obviously look at the code numbers and they say to us, they say to all of us that this is the cost-effective tariff for the regulatory framework or environment that you have. On the other debt issues, I think the question again on the average life, what we were trying to explain with the average life cycle was the point that I made was, if you take all of Eskom's debt, if you say on average, if you had to repay all of Eskom's debt, you will have to repay within 7 years. That's the point that I made. So that's the average life. And then also linked to the profile, I apologize, Mr. Modise, I came across as if it is criminal. It is certainly at the point that I made, is annually we do that. So if Last year we did it with the 2018 bond that matured. We went to the investors and we said, are you able to roll? The point that I think was important is that the concentration in the short end is reflective of people's willingness. If you're not sure that I'm going to pay you within 3 years, why would you give me money for 20 years? That's the point. And the point that I made was we would ideally want an upward sloping curve, and that would be reflective of a sustainable Eskom. And I think there's also a slide 17. I think there was a couple of references to slide 17, and I think the how does this relate to the tariff? And again, it was a summary of what we shared. And critical to this is obviously, if you look at Eskom, and I know that there might be different perspectives around it, is that Eskom actually is funded either through debt, equity, or tariffs. And the picture that we're trying to present is that disproportionately the debt is obviously carrying the situation of Eskom at the moment. If you look at the ratios that we discussed, gearing of 70% basically means that 70% of your operation or Eskom is funded by debt. If you look at the debt GDP, it says for every cent of equity that you have 2.5 cents of debt that you have. And that's the issue on that slide that we presented there on the ratings. There was also, I think, just important, and the rest of the information we can provide. Ms. Modise made the point, and you're correct. There is a clause in our debt, and you might recall, I think in 2008 when Eskom became a stable entity, there was certain debt on the book of Eskom. It amounted to 32 billion at the time, and it is, you can look at the documents, it's reflected as Section 7 debt. And basically what happened at the time was the agreement was Eskom now becomes stable entity, and that particular debt that was on the balance sheet now has a right to the revenue of Eskom. So by way of example, if something had to happen to Eskom tomorrow, the revenue of Eskom or the cash that we have would have to serve as the Section 7 debt, and all the other lenders would have to queue up and go either to government or Eskom has to dispose of its assets to cover the other debt. And I think that's the slight difference. At the moment, and interesting enough, just by way of reference, we started out at 32 billion. At the moment, the debt is slowly but surely maturing, and we're probably sitting at about 17 billion of that at the moment. So that's the assets that will have to be serviced by the assets. The last question is that why do we rely on this? I think importantly, even if you look at vendor financing or if you look at project financing, it will come back to the mothership, to the Eskom balance sheet. We have not seen, and I'm confident, I mean, I've seen what Transnet does, TCA, all of these companies do. It is not going to be cheaper for Eskom to try and follow those models. There might be nuances in the opportunity from a cost perspective, but certainly from a regulating or a legal perspective, you will then subordinate other lenders. So you will take a power station, you will fund it on a project finance basis. So if something happens in that project, the project sponsors will claim the asset, but it will then compromise the other lenders. And I think that's a legal issue and a technical issue that is also one of the issues to consider. Also, again, to Ms. Modise's point is the issue of equity. I certainly and probably need to go back and look at it. I don't think that any equity provider, we've seen it in the IPPs, would want anything lower than 15% return. We've seen the IPPs in dollar terms, the most recent numbers that I've seen in dollar terms, they want even 125%. So if you look at our return, it will never entice, or just the tariff at this stage. I mean, being quite honest, the tariffs at this stage won't entice anyone to either come in any of those forms of financing. I think that covers all the debt.
And Chair, if I may come in, linked to the equity, why are we only looking to the tariff to Eskom's financial sustainability? In Cape Town, we've said this, yes, we need to look at our costs, and I talk about our cost base, and it's linked to the principle, it's about an efficient cost base. But we said, yes, you need to look at the tariffs, as well as we talked about balance sheet support from the government's perspective. So yes, those discussions are ongoing. So we did say that to turn Eskom around, all three elements need to contribute, and that's some of the discussions that are happening around balance sheet support. And it may take a combination, as you're aware. Eskom proposed taking 100 billion of our balance sheet to the sovereign, or they may come up with alternative proposals. But maybe just link back to Mr. Badise's point, and I think a number of the members made this issue. Yes, EBITDA is a function of your revenue, which is tariffs and volumes, and your costs, your operating costs. But what we've seen is that if the tariff doesn't allow you to generate enough EBITDA, having equity injections doesn't put you on a sustainable path. And you need the tariff to be at a level where we believe it's more sustainable. And yes, we know, we said this in Cape Town, our benchmarks and estimates of the overall price of electricity, and I know we had a comment on it, in US terms it's around 6.5 cents per kilowatt. And in our future presentations we'll talk about the overall price of electricity. Now the question is, what is the sustainable price of electricity for Eskom? But if it's not at that level, the equity injections that you would require is not a once-off equity injection. You've seen in our recent results, with that 83 billion from the shareholder loan and the 23 billion that Andre talked about, within 2 years your ratios get back to this negative range in terms of investment ratings. But in terms of the overall price of electricity, etc., and those discussions we'll do in a bit more detail in the follow-up sessions. Maybe
Mr. Kasim, perhaps if you can elaborate on this point, that the tariffs are not adequate. I think it is quite critical that we understand from what perspective are you bringing that aspect, because every time we take decisions, we have never had a situation where Eskom comes to Nersa and disagree with our decision and state that the tariff or the cost that we allowed are not sufficient, are inadequate, because the issue of the adequacy of the tariff is quite critical. That is why sometimes you'll find that utilities will go and appeal the decision of the regulator, because that everything must be done at arm's length. But we have not, on the recent decisions, had a situation where we are told by the utility that the tariffs are inadequate. Is it a fair statement though, especially if you look into the standard that we apply? Remember that the standard that is applied, it is not only the prudency threshold, it is also the efficiency standard, and it is also, when it comes to the investments, whether bad investments, and also issues of uneconomic plants that are still utilized, being physically there. And you will also apply a standard of used and useful. So if you take that into consideration, looking at Eskom's problems, which you also highlighted as one of the deterioration of the operational performance, where the EAF is so low, why is it that Eskom never looks into its own, errors and mistakes? Because every utility, who must bear the risk of the errors made by the utilities? Everything is right on the wall, and yet then you expect the regulator to compensate Eskom in any event for all the costs that you claim. If we don't compensate and we disallow applying our standards, then you say the tariff is not adequate. Why is that?
Chairperson, I think we all know it's the first time in Eskom's history that the board has decided to review the 5.23%. And it wasn't easy to get to that point. And that for us is demonstrating our point, like your first question, Chairperson, if we believe it's not adequate, why did you not appeal? So that's the first time in our history we've done that, and we all know now it sits with the courts and we're waiting the process to continue. I think the second question in terms of performance of the existing fleet, the new build, especially in particular the generation, we took note of the questions. and we are definitely be dealing with the RABI NELS plate, and I think the update on the performance of EAF and the implications that will also come through in the next hearings. But Chairperson, I think the fact that Eskom is appealing the 5.23%, that for me is a demonstration from our point that we don't believe we got a adequate decision to be a sustainable organization. Now, obviously, I don't want to go into the merits of that challenge, etc., but you know, we will deal with that through a court process. But for me, I think that is the first step. But your second point around the performance of the generation fleet existing as well as new, we will address those details in the subsequent and following the questions on performance. We don't have the generation technical people here today, Chairperson.
Chair, thank you. The question regarding the adequate or efficient levels of debt collection, certainly our aspiration is to get up to 98.5%. Current average debt collection at 95%. In our application, however, how have we accounted for it? We only made provision, or only applied for a 1% in terms of impairment for the period.
Chair, in response to the question on the example which shown how the mechanism operates to compensate for a volume movement. Chair, that was yes, admittedly a very simple example that tried to isolate the one aspect of the volume movement whilst keeping everything else the same, if I can borrow from our economic colleagues, ceteris paribus. So everything else remained the same. That was just in order to isolate so as not to clutter the example with all sorts of other issues about also cost movements and so on. But having said that, you are correct. In practice, there are other things also. And I might just take Nersa back to MYPD 1. You'll recall that the third year of MYPD 1 was reopened twice. The application by Eskom was for a rule change because the MYPD 1 mechanism for primary energy was purely a volume adjuster. And Nersa, in their reasons for decision in response to Eskom's application, acknowledged that that was out of step with international practice, and that with regard to primary energy, there are many items in primary energy, especially if you're looking forward for 5 years or more on an MYP type of cycle, that where the cost can also change. And is Nersa in following up on that statement then issued the revised rules that apply to MYPD 2 and MYPD 3, where there was a mechanism included in order to not just adjust primary energy for the volume movement, but also for cost changes. Just as an example of the cost changes that can happen is in some primary energy components, there are high fixed cost elements also. For much of the water that is consumed by Eskom pays essentially a facility fee. And whether the water volume is higher or lower, the facility fee remains the same one. By its nature, cost plus ROI type of coal contracts that over the long term give us the most economical coal prices, but by its nature, those contracts, if the volume increases, the fixed cost embedded in that coal contract will not increase at the same rate, but also will not drop at the same rate if the volume decreases. And then just finally on that, Chair, that actual numbers that you saw there from our page 12 of our RCA application measured the variance from the actual relative to Nersa's MYP decision for the 5th year of MYPD 3. However, if you look at Eskom's application for MYPD 3's 3rd year, the number for primary energy was quite a bit higher, and therefore the percentage decrease that you see as a percentage that you quoted relative to what Eskom said at the time would be appropriate for the volumes that were anticipated. That percentage decrease is quite a bit higher if it's measured to what Eskom applied for rather than what was assumed in the MYPD decision. With that, I'll hand back to Andre.
Just hold on, Mr. Yuga. I think that there is a follow-up question from Mr. Modise, but also if you could provide us with the information in writing that would justify, in your view, why you believe it should not drop by the same amount. If you can provide us with the facts that you believe, in your view, it should not drop by the same amount. We're looking forward to that information in terms of the evidence where you can demonstrate why and provide the explanation to that, to those facts for the energy regulator to consider. The second issue on the fixed costs, if you could provide us with the audited information showing all the elements of the fixed cost or those assets that were utilized in 2017-18 to provide the service, so that we can be able from our side to look into those assets and all those other elements of the fixed cost that you are claiming here, and also to see to what extent have they contributed to the service, and see if they can be excluded from the rate base if some of them were not used or not useful anymore. So if you could provide us with such audited information and demonstrate all those fixed costs that you are claiming in your application. Mr. Maurice?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I think you probably covered the one, the first element I was going to ask, that in writing, just do a waterfall tab table that says, your volume decreased by 15%, why has your primary energy not decreased, and then look at all those factors. But what I'd like to also add, and you need to do the calculations for us in writing, and even just for the RCAs. To the extent that, I know you haven't answered a lot of my other questions, but maybe you can do it in writing. To the extent that the delays, for instance, in commissioning of certain plants have costs, the utilization of older plants or more use of certain plants as opposed to others.
Those ones, they've already committed, Mr. Mopisa.
Oh, they have.
We've put a list of all of those, and we even said that they must adjust. We listed even those that failed after the delay on the commissioning.
Yeah.
So all of those have been asked, and they committed. They gave us a list of when they will provide each of that information. It was quite detailed in PD, and we also have additional ones in Durban. So they have already undertaken to provide all of those things.
As long as perhaps what I would like to also hear from Eskom, just from your side, Madam Chair, is to say, just hand over heart. If you know that and the rating agencies are also saying that there's been execution problems, even on CAPEX, and you overspend on I think the build program. What amount, what level of adjustment do you think Nersa should be making? Obviously, we'll do our own calculations, but it would be nice to say whether you acknowledge that there should be an adjustment where you have overspending CAPEX, what your calculation would be like, and what matrices you would use, and how would it affect both the RCA and the MYPD 4, just in relation to, and maybe just 2 points again of clarity, is that you keep saying the gearing ratio of 70% is an issue. Your application your MYPD4 application is based on the precise ratio. Debt being 70% and equity being 30%. And you know, and I just keep hearing that that's an issue. Perhaps you need to explain why your application is based on that and you say it's an issue. And then this equity return, you know, if you look at the weighted average cost of capital, that is contained in your application. I'm saying even before you do this adjustment, we'll talk about you know, why you didn't want the full return. Just to be clear, you are actually asking, and your whole formula is not different from what one would get from the private sector or other entities. I mean, using your cost of debt, and this in nominal terms, before tax, of 11.6%, but your cost of equity in your own application is 22.1%. Your equity return in your application in nominal terms is 22.1%, in real terms is 16.1%. And somehow, I know at the end, in your application you said you did the weighted average cost of capital as an adjustment and it was a sacrifice and all those sort of stuff. But there is no difference in the returns on equity that you're asking from us as a regulator from what you know, private sector organizations and will be getting. And the fact that you're using other rationale and you say, you know, South Africa cannot afford it, and then you do your own sacrifice on your return, doesn't remove from the fact that our model gives you the full return and an equity return. And in effect, it assumes that you are funding part of your operations using equity. And maybe just to be clear, there is nothing in a regulatory model that assumes that, you know, all your funding is based on debt. It's actually, we are giving you an equity return. And we assume 30% of your funding will be in equity, even if you don't raise the equity. And therefore, you know, I think it will be misleading to almost saying, to give the impression that our methodology or model doesn't give you an equity return and it's low. I don't know if you want me to ask the other questions.
Not is what is. I think we are running out of time, extremely out of time. We are, it's now 12 o'clock. Okay, one question, please.
All right, I think, let me just ask one question just on this, maybe I'll limit it to Soweto date, and maybe again come back to us in writing then. And maybe explain to us, in your slide, well, you're talking about, well, let's just be clear. Soweto used to be under Johannesburg municipality. And Joburg municipality gave this problem to Eskom. And in fact, Eskom thought it was going to resolve the problem. So what we want to understand is, number one, why did Eskom choose to take that problem from City Power or Joburg municipality, one of the two? Number one, why is it that you actually have not been able to resolve it? Your calculation shows that, in fact, over the years, you know, you've actually, could be 17 billion, in fact, it could be over 20 billion that hasn't been paid. And the third issue that you need to explain is, why is it that all the debt that you write off, you add back in your tariff application? And just to be clear, what you're doing is, to the extent that, and I'll use Soweto as an example, but in fact, you're looking at all the debt that you write off. In your tariff application, you go and say, you know, we didn't get this revenue, including your RCA. Your customers, municipality hasn't paid you, or you've written this off, and there must be a revenue adjustment relating to that. Effectively, what that means is the rest of the country or the rest of other not taxpayers, South Africa is paying for those customers that are not paying. So please explain why this is not double counting, and why is it that other areas like Soweto, in fact, if they're not paying, the rest of the South Africa is paying. And if you think that is not the case, then just please explain it in relation to your full application. Thank you, Chair.
Right, Eskom, can you please be brief and then indicate the areas or the information that you'll provide in writing?
Chair, just briefly, a quick response to Mr. Modisi's question. He raised the question on, and the reference was page 5 in the results, and the perception or the understanding or interpretation was that the rating agencies say it's fine. The point that we wanted to make in the director's report there was the state of our loan agreements, the fact that when we had a downgrade, we did not, as Eskom, like similar other utilities or other entities, as a result of a downgrade, none of our loan agreements contain repricing triggers or prepayment triggers. And I think that's the emphasis of that comment. It was not to suggest that rating agency says Eskom is fine.
Chairperson, the detail on Soweto and others will come back in writing or present in the next hearings. But the one point I just want to clarify here, definitely in the RCA, we're very clear when it comes to the revenue variance. The non-collectability from our customers is not included in that revenue variance, and we'll demonstrate that in a future session and in the detail writings. And in the application for MYPD4, although the current non-payment levels are around 3%, we've only applied for 1% in MYPD4, but we'll demonstrate that also in writing in subsequent meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kasim. I think some of the questions will be responded to in writing, including the one about the inefficient new builds affected by the borrowing. All of those questions must be responded to in writing. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a presentation from Mr. Ted Blom before we break for lunch. Mr. Ted Blom, if you could come forward, please. Mr. Ted Blom, do you solemnly declare that the facts you are going to share with this panel today will be the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. Please state your full name and your designation at Mining and Energy Advisors.
My name is Ted Blom. I'm a partner at Mining and Energy Advisors.
Thank you, Mr. Blom. We have we've heard your presentations, and we hope that it will be adjusted based on some of the additional information so that we can benefit from your presentation here today on some of the new information that has come to the fore.
Absolutely, Madam Chair. I've tried my best to adapt my presentation.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I don't think I've ever been in a meeting where a gun has been held to the regulator's head as much as has been happening in the last 3 weeks. I mean, I find it absolutely astounding that Eskom is expecting the regulator via the tariff process to sort out all its operating problems. I think another question that arises is, as the panel has asked, is what is cost reflective? When I started with the Nersa hearings around about 2009, I was told it would be around about 60 cents a kilowatt hour. We're now heading on to R1.43 a kilowatt hour, and Eskom has not given us a new cost reflective tariff. And in fact, that cost reflective tariff mustn't be what an inefficient, corrupt Eskom has to charge to stay solvent. It should be a cost-reflective tariff based on an efficient operation that is prudently managed. And as we've seen this morning, this organization is anything but prudently managed. I was also surprised to hear mention of the ghost vending machines. But Eskom has not yet told us how much those machines are stealing from them and what they've done to take them out of the system. The reason being, I'm told that some of Eskom's executives actually benefit from these ghost vending machines. And if you want names, wait until the 4th of February. What's a prudent increase, what's an affordable increase? They just every time demand and say Eskom is entitled to this. In fact, they say Eskom is entitled to a 90% increase, but we'll settle with 70. They keep on modeling on a business as usual, despite the whole country being on its knees because of electricity tariff. In fact, so much so that the president of this country has had to intervene in the misdemeanors of Eskom. I mean, that's a crime and shame. Mention was also made by Eskom that in some previous era, Eskom's bonds traded more favorably than the sovereign. Well, I can proudly say that I was part of that regime, when Eskom's bonds traded more favorably than the sovereign. And it's disgusting to see Eskom deteriorate so badly over the years that it's now on its knees. In terms of asset-based financing, Madam Chair, it's very easy why Eskom cannot get asset-based financing. It's because they're paying 10 times more for the assets than what the market value is. Nobody in their right mind would provide you financing at 10 times the market value for the asset. Now to my presentation for today. I'm going to quickly recap for the benefit of the new audience in this venue today. Is that my stance remains that Eskom has been captured since 2001. And until a recommendation happens to sort this mess out, I remain of the view that Eskom is captured. I also want to inform this public that the outlook is not 15% a year. You will be paying 70% more for your electricity by the end of this tariff application. So if you want to cry, you need to cry now, not in 3 years' time. This application is defective in a number of instances. This panel has highlighted Eskom has not volunteered to come back with a reworked application. And I'll illustrate in my last slide why this tariff application is totally defective. On top of that, we are awaiting a broad turnaround plan, which is a year late. Fantastic. The company's in crisis, and we're waiting here for a turnaround plan that hasn't looked okay. The reason for that is because the board is inexperienced. They're out of their depth. They haven't got a clue what business they're running. I believe the task force has made its recommendations available today. I'm not sure if anybody has seen that. But they're recommending that Eskom be broken up into 3 units. Well, I did that application to the Competition Commission 3 years ago. It was stopped by my previous employer, Outer, but I stand by what I said, that Eskom, for transparency's sake, needs to be broken up so that you can see what the transfer pricing is between the units. That transfer pricing is not apparent in the current application. Then there's several investigations, including the Zondo Commission. And I've been complaining, Mr. Madam Chair, about the MYPD structure for years now. And there has been some improvements, but there also has been no further disclosure on coal costs, amongst other things, as well as the RAB that we were promised we would see and that we instructed Eskom to make available to us. That has not been made available to us. Nor has the consultant support been made available to us. So we've got no idea. We are relying on a corrupt Eskom to make its own valuation judgments as to what the RAB is. And you and I are sitting here, the tail is wagging the dog, and that is not correct. The other factor that I want to get to, and I'm really getting into the heart of my presentation for today, is that the Eskom license structure is deficient. I want Nersa to relook it, because when there is something wrong, there are 3 licenses as I understand it. There's a generation license, there's a distribution license, and a transmission license. If there's a problem with any one of those, let's say Creel is not efficiently run or whatever, If you attack the Eskom license, you attack the whole fleet of generation assets. And that surely can't have been the intention of the regulator when you put together the rules for this licensing process. The licenses need to be segregated into assets and to customers, so that every municipality has a separate license agreement, so that if there's the misdemeanors by Eskom or the municipality, that license can be suspended or attacked or whatever. We can't have one license for everybody. And the reason I mention this, because Eskom is in denial already, is that there is gross irregularities on the billing side. You and I think there's only been state capture on the coal side and on the capex side, where the assets have been overvalued and the costs have been overvalued. Believe you me, part and parcel of this corruption is overstating the debt and the billing to municipalities. And in due course, with the blessing of Nersa and the arbitration process, I will illustrate the extent of the rottenness in the billing to municipalities. And that's why they don't want to pay you. Because nearly half of your accounts are irregular, aggressive, or fictitious. And I'm going to show that to you in the next 6 months, because I'm in arbitration on a number of municipalities. Municipalities don't want to be delinquent. A lot of them want to pay their costs. But if they've got a gun to their head, and Eskom doesn't want to talk about the elements inside the invoices, and I mean, we've had Joburg municipality illustrate that with the last hearings. Are they paying penalties because of the NMD problem? I don't know when Nersa is going to give an answer on the NMD, but that needs to be sorted out. The other issue is line charges. And I want to refer to the farmers. The farmers, and I have personal first-hand account of this because my family are farmers. They were told that if they wanted line extensions onto the farms under Eskom's so-called move to electrify the agricultural sector, they can enter into 25-year agreements, and Eskom will then provide the line and the farmer will finance that line. A lot of those agreements have reached maturity, but Eskom still charges amortization charges on those lines. On top of that, Eskom is now charging maintenance charges to replace the amortization charges. Year after year, Eskom comes with massive increases applications, and I can't believe for a moment in my life, and I appeal to the rationality of this panel, that the cost escalation on the line that's never maintained must be the same as the cost on coal or personnel costs or whatever. These lines in the rural areas are never maintained. You can go and check them for yourselves. I'm going to bring Nersa photographs of meters that are broken and have been broken for years. And that's why I talk about the fictitious. Eskom manages to get readings from broken meters that are out of order, but they still get readings from it, which include the municipality accounts and farmers' accounts. So there's a big issue here. There's a big issue of fraudulent and corrupt behavior of Eskom. So it's not just the Gupta stuff or the Bosasa stuff as we've seen. There's more to it. And it's deeper, it's much deeper. And then I cry when I say that I can't believe that we believe that the MYPD process is cogent and ethical and correct. If Eskom comes forward and says that according to their calculations they're entitled to a 90% price increase. With all this inefficiency that you are aware of, I'm aware of, I'm going to show you now further, and I'll show you in Port Elizabeth. It's so inefficient and corrupt. And yet they're entitled under that corrupt regime to claim a 90% price increase. God knows how they get there. I come back to what the regulator itself said, is that it may initiate its own investigation into the governance failures in Eskom, and may affect the judgments to Eskom's revenue base and the relevant outcome of the severe. I'm going to ask you again, to the Madam Chair of the panel, I want Nersa to do its tariff investigation. You cannot make a determination if you don't know what the rotten facts are that you are being presented with. Fact. Eskom has been milking customers via extra charges. I've just illustrated that. Farmers pay exorbitant line charges despite having financed the lines. Line charges appear to be based on maximum demand, MND. MND is only neutralized for a portion of the year. The rest of the year the lines are nearly idle, but the customer still gets penalized for the pipes, and they aren't allowed to modify their applications. Overhead charges exceed consumption charges on more than 10 months of the year for a lot of these farmers. That can't be rational. Surely it's user pay. Eskom has said user pay. But yeah, it's non-user pay. I mean, it's ridiculous. Most rural farmlands are never maintained. I can show you pictures. And farmers are charged under the Eskom appropriation of the tariff increases. Farmers are charged the highest tariffs available. And we expect to be able to feed our people. When the very farm, the factory that makes the food is charged the worst tariff under the sun. Then there's also market coercion by Eskom. It's anti-competitive according to the Competitions Act, and I will be reopening up my application to the Competition Commission. I want to refer the panel to the inefficient producer stats, and this is now becoming common knowledge. When I cried about corruption in Eskom in 2009, everybody looked at me as if I'm mad. Today it's an acknowledged fact from the public protector to the parliamentary committee and to the zonal commission. It's a fact that Eskom is being corrupt. And it's a pity that this panel, in its earlier lines in Constitution, didn't acknowledge what I was crying for in 2009. It's a fact that the labor force of Eskom is inefficient. And we can debate this World Bank report. But the cost, my indication is at 75% inefficient. And Eskom has got reports. I've seen the reports done by Eskom. I was an employee of Eskom, which confirms 75% inefficiency. That costs Eskom at least 31. Mr. Madisa was talking about managing costs. Here's where the wastage happens. If they sort the wastage out, the EBITDA would be much, much better. The extra cost on wasted labor is 31 billion rand a year according to my calculation. The capital wastage. Eskom is paying 10 times more for these stupid assets that aren't operating than what the World Bank average is. So that's a 90% inefficiency on capex. And the extra cost on the return on assets on an inflated base that's worth nothing is 50 billion a year plus. The operations are inefficiency. The EAF is below 70%. That amounts to extra cost in my calculation of around 30 billion. I can't give you the numbers because Eskom doesn't give me the numbers, but I'm estimating them to the best of my ability. The tariff is more than 70% higher than what it should be, so that's another 100 billion rand a year. The coal, I want you to watch very closely, madam. The coal inefficiency is greater than 50%. I illustrated to you in Port Elizabeth that Eskom is paying 40 billion rand a year extra for short-term coal acquisitions. I've now prorated that one step further to the 25% oil of the coal that they say they're buying under the short-term contracts. That equates to 1,600 rand a ton landed cost for Eskom for short-term coal contracts. Now if that has a slack of that's 4 times, no, it's nearly 7 times higher than the long-term price of coal. If that has a smack of corruption, no. To me, it's about 3 billion a month in corruption at extra cost. And then the salaries, if they were right-sized, the salaries are 75% inefficient. Because the average is 800,000 as we've seen from Eskom, and the real cost should be 200 and something odd thousand, and the wastage of 600,000 per person. That's after cutting the headcount. And that amounts to another 9 billion rand a year in wasted cost. And I'm happy to consult on these points. As I said, I don't have access to the actual numbers. The Eskom average on-bill cost, or the marginal cost, is below 40 cents a kilowatt hour. Direct cost. I don't know where all the rest of the money goes to. The renewables are over 4 rand a kilowatt hour. I've received the email on the cost of the dispatch rules. The extra cost on dispatch under the current modified scenario is an extra 34 billion rand a year, either to Eskom or loss of revenue to Eskom, whichever way you want to look at it. And I want to ask, is Nersa ethically watching out for the consumer? Because part and parcel of the Electricity Regulation Act is that Nersa needs to balance the interests of Eskom, or the electricity producer, and the consumer. And I want to ask, if I was an electricity producer, would I get these lavish increases that Eskom has got over the last 10 years? In terms of the outlook, will Eskom survive? Well, the World Bank said yesterday that Eskom is too big to fail. And that's only half the story. The other half of the story in South Africa came out before Eskom. I can't afford Eskom. Lots of people are telling me they're going off the grid. In fact, I've got a queue of people who are asking me to help them get off the grid. But at this trajectory, and business as usual, South Africa cannot afford Eskom. And Eskom acknowledges that. Because in their own application, they acknowledge they're going to lose 134,000 extra jobs out of the economy. So I ask you, Madam Chair, do we save 134,000 jobs in the economy, the real economy, people who work, or do we save 75,000 fat cats jobs in Eskom who do no work? The facts. Part 2. Mr. Mabuza, the chairman, Eskom is at least 10,000 overstaffed. That's not reflected in this application, nor in the RCA. How can the chairman be publicly quoted as saying Eskom is at least 10,000 heads overstaffed and there's nothing in the application? Mr. Gordon, Eskom is unsustainable. There's no mention of that in this application. It's a business as usual application. Your very stakeholder, your shareholder tells you you're unsustainable, but you ignore that. I can't believe it. The president of this country has gone to Davos and he's made a pledge. We will fix Eskom. There's no fixing scenario in this under this stuff here. This is business as usual. I haven't seen one effort to fix anything in Eskom and in these applications. So now you're deciding to help with the president. The World Bank has said you're inefficient. Your actual assets is less than your debt at market values. You're insolvent. Your MYPD application shows a 50 billion rand shortfall. That can't be on a going concern basis. So you're acknowledging that Eskom is not a going concern. And if that's the case, it's an act of insolvency. Mr. Mabuza, Eskom is no longer able to pay its debt. That's another act of insolvency. Shall I put the words onto Eskom? Therefore, Eskom is no longer a going concern. And don't be surprised if your lenders come to you during the March and say, shut the doors. Because we have not provided for any rational explanation or turnaround plan as to how you're going to solve this mess. I've got big issues with Eskom. Where is the new dawn? You've ignored the president's January speech that there's a new dawn. There's no new dawn. It's just darkness. There's no outcome of a turnaround strategy. Okay, and the outcome of the Wise Men report, I believe, was published today in the Business Day. I'll get that tonight when I get to Joburg. But surely a tariff increase of 70% before any fixing up of Eskom is premature. Because maybe if you can't fix Eskom up, the public must fix you up. And the public is already calling to me to call for a boycott. And if the public starts fixing up, you'll see a very, very different Eskom. I promise you that. But certainly a 3-year paradigm is definitely unethical. There's no way the public can agree to a 3-year increase. My recommendation, scrap these applications until we see a full Nersa forensic report and a fundamental restructure, because we cannot carry on like this. By your own admission, we cannot carry on. Your chairman's admission, we cannot. The minister, the president, we cannot carry on like this. But yet the people sitting here just carry on. To help with everybody. So I ask, Nersa, are we going to get a forensic report from you on Eskom, or are you also going to look the other way? If Nersa isn't going to sort out the conflicts and the corruption in Eskom, I will make my way to the Zombie Commission. And that will not be a pleasant experience, I can promise you that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ted Blom.
I hope everybody's awake.
Everybody's awake because, as you say, that Nersa must fix all the ills of Eskom, even the ones that are beyond the mandate of Nersa, the corruption. It cannot be Nersa because we don't have that mandate. But also in your presentation, you did not touch on the question that we were asking Eskom, the one where Eskom keeps saying that the tariff is inadequate. You see, so those are some of the things that the regulator is sitting here, it has to do. And it is not within our law that when the application is before us, we don't have a discretion to say we just throw it away without providing the reason. So you know exactly what our legal requirements are, and also the administrative process that we have to follow. But we do what we have to do.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much. I want to check if the members of the panel have just specific questions to ask from Mr. Ted Blom. Mr. Foley? No questions from your side. Mr. Spanda, any clarity from Mr. Ted Blom?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Chair, we've previously requested Mr. Blom to at least give an indication of some of the sources for your data, or the states that you quote, and also if you can assist in terms of how you arrive at some of the calculations that you have in your slides. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Spanda. Mr. Lewis?
Yeah, I think my question is probably similar, but I know we have asked some questions in Cape Town and stuff, but maybe even the calculations, just so that we get it specific. You said Eskom is insolvent, actual assets are less than the debt, but you said the assets at market value. If you can just show us those calculations, just so that we just get an understanding. Because the financial statements doesn't show Eskom to be insolvent, but maybe there are calculations with that thing.
You very much, Mr. Kiss.
I'm taken care of by the questions asked by my colleagues, but I just also to be specific around the overstatement of the assets from your side in the information that you provide. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ted Blom, if you could also just assist us with regards to the two applications, just pointing to some form of adjustments that would like the regulator to consider and perhaps implement, based then, once you prove the figures and you've demonstrated your basis of these calculations, and also all of these other information regarding the wasted capex, and also the coal inefficiencies. So based on the coal inefficiencies, the EAF that is below, and all of that, based on the fact that Eskom has estimated 78%, we know that is not going to materialize, and they have undertaken to provide us revised figures in Gauteng for all the elements that we are concerned about in the application. So we are likely to see some form of a revised application that is closer to reality. But we also want stakeholders to come up with their own information and their basis. So if you could assist us showing that information, but also indicate what is your proposed way of adjustment, your approach to adjust it downwards. We would appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'll do that in writing, and then if you excuse me for some of the places where I said I'd like to attend, I'll try and spend that time doing the written application.
If you could submit in Gauteng, we'll appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Madam. I promise you the bombshell in Gauteng.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. All right. Thank you, Mr. Blom. Can we then move on to take another presenter, Agri Northern Cape, Nicole Jansen. Agri Northern Cape, we've got the name of Nicole Jansen. Mr. Jansen, may you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly declare that the facts you're going to present before this panel today will be the truth and the whole truth?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you very much. Please state your full name and your designation as Agri Northern Cape for the record.
Yes, I'm Nicole Jansen. I'm the president of Agri Northern Cape.
All right, thank you. You may start with your presentation, sir.
Chairperson, thank you very much for the opportunity. I will have a few ideas and comments for both the applications as a whole and not one by one. So the outline of my presentation is just shortly Agri Northern Cape and who we are, introduction statements, economy of the Northern Cape, agricultural outlook, the Eskom story, And I want to make a few proposals that I think that can be helpful. So Agri Northern Cape is a provincial affiliate of Agri South Africa, and we're a member organization. Irrigation gives food stability for food production. And this is so clear in this drought situations, in a drought year like this year. The cold chain is very important for agriculture. Agriculture is responsible for food security, and we can't take this Eskom crisis lightly. Agriculture is not ignorance towards Eskom's financial challenges, but we must take our own well-being in consideration as well. And we are highly concerned about the cost of electricity, the above inflation increases, and the financial impact thereof. So the economy of the Northern Cape is mostly dependent on agriculture. The large agricultural intensive areas is irrigation, and the largest labor market is also in irrigation, that is use electricity. The largest commodity in intensive area is grains, and maize and yellow maize and wheat is the main crops. Now in the previous presentations I showed the graphics, the price forming. I tried to show you why is agriculture price takers and what the effect of the financial cost is. So to save some time, I just want to state here that the drought throughout the province has intensified from last year. Financial well-being has worsened in the Northern Cape. The outlook and forecast for rain is below normal. Already past halfway the rainy season. 2019 follows on the back of a financial strain 2018 that had a huge impact on the financial status of the farmers in the Northern Cape. The debt of agriculture in the Northern Cape is on the rise. So the Eskom story and the price increases summed up, and maybe the figures is not 100% correct, the tendencies is the same. So we have all the MYPD processes and the RCA applications, and that one was granted in the last 5.2% in 2018-19. The first one I want to emphasize here is that this will be used as the base year for all calculations further on. In the MYPD2 application, way back in 2009, we asked Nersa that will these applications or the increases be only on base year or cumulative, thank you. So it ends up that it was cumulative and not on base year, but the last one stated that it will only be calculated on the base year. So we want to see that that 4% that's granted to make up the 33 billion will only be on this on the base year. Now the application for 15% is on top of the 4%, and they go up with 90%. To sum it up, in the 14 years we have a 636% increase of electricity tariffs. So 45% per annum based on the base year. Over 10 years it is 344% or 34% per annum on base year. So that is how the graphic of the tariff increases looks like. The blue line indicates the real tariff increases, and the bottom line is if Eskom's tariffs increase with 6%, that is the bottom line of the Reserve Bank targets, and on a cumulative basis, that would be how it should look. But this is what is in reality. And we have to fill this gap. We have to pay for this above inflation related Eskom tariffs, and that is a huge constraint for agriculture. Now the numbers don't add up. Now what did Eskom with this 334% increase, and what has changed? Eskom's installed capacity in 2008 was 38,000 megawatts, and it's now 45,500. So it's an increase of 17% in the installed capacity. And I read in Finweek that only 30,000 megawatts is reliable. Eskom debt in 2008 was 51 billion, and it's now 419. So it grew 368 billion. The last year alone, 52 billion. It's an increase of 721%. It's an average of 37 billion a year, the debt increase, and the capacity only with 17%. The debt raised with 368 billion for an extra 7,000 megawatt installed capacity. The Standard & Poor rating, as in the previous presentations, dropped from A1 to CC++, that is below junk status. It doesn't make economical sense. It doesn't speak of a proper financial management nor sustainable business plan. And we should do something about that. It can't carry on like that. And I'm afraid that a further 15% over 3 years will not bring a turnaround strategy. Eskom personnel is also problematic. In 2008 it was 32,900. In 2018 around about 41,000 if you exclude Rotec. It's an increase of 25%. And the expenditure rise from 10 billion to 24 billion. So the increase of 140% on salary account to manage 17% more installed generating capacity and still have a lack of experience and skills for proper maintenance. So Eskom end up with too many personnel, pay too much for them, and have a lack of skills. We have to fix this. The business model asks the public for 15% increase on top of the already approved 4% for 19% to fund this business model. Energy sales is coming down. So this is not taking Eskom forward in its capacity or in the capacity or efficiency. Business model is not suitable for sustainable energy generation and supply for the next 30 to 50 years. We have to do something drastically. I agree that nothing is changed in the application in terms of the business model or management. The need for 50% over 3 years to realize 50 billion loss in terms of Bloomberg. Now this can be contradicted toward Eskom figures, but if Eskom's figures are accurate, why do we have an RCA application with every MYPD application? Why is the RCA always have to follow it up? Because the calculations is not correct. Maybe it's not that easy, but that's the fact. So it's easily being a loss for 50 billion in the next 3 years. To predict 11.5 billion for the first year. It's now up to 15. 15 times 3 is 45, so 50 is not that out of line. So the graphic of price will keep increase without any results as is. The predicted point of no return within 3 years when the debt rises to 650 billion. Then it's too late. Then we're in serious trouble in terms of Eskom. So the scenario around Eskom's business model, to sum it up. The past 10 years, the MYPD and RCA processes is above inflation increases. It adds up to an average of 35% per annum German. There's no change in the business model. There's no outlook for inflation-related increases for the next 10 years. And I said it last year as well. There's no long-term solution, no structure planning, no business. It's just business as usual. The improved technology available to the consumer as a power source is more difficult, will make it more difficult for Eskom to compete cost-effective in future. And you have to bear that in mind when you think about the future. Some customers have already have alternatives via technology, especially within municipalities, and they start using Eskom as a standby. And that is not taken into consideration within these applications. So the problem is intensifying. The tariff increase Chairman, is not the answer for this problem, for this scenario. I want to ask a question. It's already been raised today. Who is a prime customer to Eskom? How does the profile look like of a prime customer of Eskom? One who makes regular payments, who's not in arrear, use huge quantities of energy. There's expansion opportunity to grow yourselves. That is a client that you want to have. Now, do industries, factories, and richer suburbs qualify from that profile? For sure. Now, compare it with Soweto. There's also a Eskom client. Now, with increasing tariffs, who are more capable of independent off-grid solutions? What will the Eskom client profile look like within the next 10 years with this pace of tariff increases and technology better year on year? That is the problem, and we have to take that in consideration. So what needs to be done? That is my suggestions. We have to be brave enough to implement the hard, unavoidable business decisions. We don't have a choice. Clean Eskom of corruption unforgivingly. We appreciate the methods and the processes that is in place, that started, but I'm of the opinion it's not unforgivingly on this stage. We have to regain losses. We have to stabilize the debt. That is not that easy, but I will make a suggestion in terms of that.
Meneer Jansen?
Yes.
If you can try to speed up.
I will do, Chair. I will do that. So, Eskom have the ability to ruin South Africa financially. We must stop capital spending on Medupi and Kishele immediately. Use the 3 units that is commissioned, although it doesn't work fine, fix that, but stop there. Kishele the one. Eskom blew his chance and failed to produce new capacity. Stop trying to correct a 1.5 billion design flaw. If you take the predictions of the money that is needed to fix this out of this MYPD 4 application, you will get a whole new set of data that is more favorable. Sort the coal contracts out on business principles, not political goals. Adapt legislation to allow private investment to fill this generation space shortage with private capital expenditure and investment, not Eskom's. We have to have a smaller employee corps that is skilled at reach. And then the second one is very important. We have to get employer certainty to core personnel that must be part of the future of Eskom. We have to need the independent grid. Implement recommendations of the President Ramaphosa panel. No more tariff increases, it's suicide for Eskom. Allow private economy investment and a friendly environment. I want to conclude. Lowest energy cost in Africa is no argument to those who can't afford it. Took a lesson from Zimbabwe. Mr. Mwanga, well, the President Mwanga raises the fuel cost with 150%. There's bloodshed on the streets. People are dying. And he stated that it's still the cheapest fuel in the region. It's not wrong, it's correct, but the Zimbabwean people can't afford it. And that is exactly what will happen in South Africa. So the sooner the better. Eskom management must recognize that it's the end of the road for Eskom in this current form, on this trend. Eskom can deal better with employee challenges while you have 490 billion debt than 650. But do it sooner the better. Alternate energy and storage solutions improves year on year, and it will come in competition with Eskom, who suffocates in debt. The South African economy and world tendencies, public demand and protest will force the EU to legislative adjustments to allow alternatives. Eskom's monopoly is not sustainable. So we can't deal with further tariff increases. But my concern is, Chairman, and that is the last slide, that Eskom still don't get it. Why pay more than $500,000 to fund a political party with Eskom's money that is a public company? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Jensen. I'm going to check if the members have specific clarity from your presentation in terms of asking the questions. Mr. Nkis.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks for the presentation, sir. I would just like to ask in terms of providing information that is pertinent to the agricultural sector in the province, whenever possible. Especially to say, for example, the impact that it can have in terms of employment in the agricultural sector, I'll say profitability in the agricultural sector, so we are able to incorporate that when we are doing the socio-economic impact analysis. Otherwise, the issues that you have raised are to be responded to by Eskom activity.
Thank you, Mr. Nkis.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Jensen. Just a few questions of clarity. If you go to your slide number 4, no, your introductory statements. Yeah, just a few clarity issues on there. And perhaps if you don't have some of this info, you can give it to us later. That third bullet point, you mentioned that you talk about food security and Eskom and your agriculture. I think your members not taking the Eskom crisis lightly. What will be useful for us is to just get an understanding on the level. Well, it's actually two questions. What amount of self-generation do your members have? What is, how many of your members have got their own, whether it's solar plants or whatever the case is? But also what is also important is at what level does it become uneconomic for your members to buy electricity from Eskom? So I don't know whether you've been able to calculate that, the threshold at which your members say, listen, I'd rather go and buy my own generator or generate electricity from, I don't know, water flows or whatever the case is. At what level, if you have some of those figures, do you think it becomes uneconomic? And perhaps something that's related to that, and it does come later on, is, Eskom seem to indicate that the price of electricity, the demand is inelastic, meaning that, the price can go up, but it doesn't affect the volume. So the electricity can increase, but the impact on the volume is lower. If you have some of the figures from your members, if you have, do you agree firstly with that statement that in general electricity is not elastic, and that the tariff can increase and you won't lose customers from the grid? But I think if you go to the next slide, the second bullet, large agricultural, the second bullet, large agricultural intensive irrigation areas. Do you have just a percentage? And I know it's similar to what my colleague has asked. What percentage of your cost is electricity? And if you go to 2 slides after this, where you're showing the energy increase. And perhaps it's something that some of our team must just sit down and explain. I know you're showing, we indicated that ESCOM will be able to recover the regulatory clearing account for the previous the applications that they did, that 4%. I know you've calculated as if it's going to be a 4% increase every year. I don't know if you are aware of our reason for decision where the 7 billion gets added in the first year, and then in subsequent years you go back to the base, and maybe it gets complicated. But I'm saying the way you calculate it, as if it becomes cumulative, it gets baked into the base. But in terms of our decision, it's not quite. But we can make that reason for decision available to you. And then just quickly, if you go to slide, where he's saying, what did ESCOM do with the, sorry, just if the slides are not in number, yeah, maybe stay on that one. Everybody obviously talks, and ESCOM talks about one side of the balance sheet, that debt increasing 419 to 419 billion. But nobody seems to be focusing on the increase in the asset base. Are these figures, I think, available to you guys? Is ESCOM making some of this information available? And I see Madam Chair is chasing us here.
Yes, Mr. Morris, I think some of that information, only information that the presenter is in a position to produce. But if it's about ESCOM, we'll ask that one directly from ESCOM.
Yeah, then let me ask them this one. In terms of what you're saying, what needs to be done, the slide that says what needs to be done, you're saying stop capital spending. ESCOM has indicated that, and they've also indicated this in previous presentations, RCA applications, that if they stop and they don't complete the existing plans, the cost of restarting the constructions is going to be higher. Do you agree with that? Have you and your members done any of a calculation that indicate whether this is correct? That if they stop for a while and should the energy be required, they can restart, will it cost more or not?
Mr. Slot.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Jansen. I just only have one question. So twice in your presentation, right at the beginning, the third slide or so, and towards the end, you indicate that the average tariff increase over the past 10 years has been above inflation. Now, are you then suggesting that your sector is only able to absorb an increase that is linked to the rate of inflation? And if so, how should we as the regulator then deal with the issues of trying to apply the methodology? Because there is a specific methodology that we need to apply, but it seems to be suggesting that any increase that is above inflation would actually hurt your sector. If you could please clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jansen, I think most of these questions really are looking at giving us information, actual information from your members, the views of the members, because it will be factually based in terms of your response if there's a price increase, the levels of consumption or electricity consumption. Are your members going to reduce their consumption at what point will they switch to other technologies or sources of energy? I think they're all linked, so I'm just wrapping them up because you will get a follow-up, a set of questions, really trying to understand the price elasticity of demand as we're going to embark on a price sensitivity analysis, and that requires the actual views and the actual or the possible reaction by customers themselves. So there is a set of questions that Nersa will send during the course of this week, in fact maybe by tomorrow, and there's Ms. Luhuma here who has those questions. So what we will need to understand firstly, what is the likely response and the sensitivity of your members in terms of price increase. Will they reduce consumption? Have they reduced consumption in the previous years? If you can share those details, and what will they do, and give different scenarios. If the increase was 3%, or if the increase was 5%, or if the increase was 10%, and the higher increase of 15%, would your members absorb, or would your members consume less? I think that's the part that we want to understand, and the switching point to other sources of energy.
Thank you, Chairperson. On the first question, in terms of the social impact, I want you to listen to the next presentation of Free State Agriculture. I found with my eye on his presentation that there is information about that. If there's still a question about that, we will likely to help to answer it, but let us listen to that presentation as well. About the self-generation, Nersa should be aware of the registration applications currently on your desk. That will show you that we already get to the tipping point where alternative energy become more cost efficient. The bigger energy users, but under 1 megabyte, find it easily. They turn around or pay back their capital cost is around about 5 to 7 years, and there's already a huge investment in that area. The problem is, Chairperson, that we are held back by legislation. Agriculture is left behind. IPP is filling the space within municipality areas with and stemming from the municipalities. They can apply rooftop solar panels in the municipality networks, but agriculture is left behind due to legislation. Furthermore, there's a tactic within Nersa by delaying stuff. There's always another thing that we have to deal with, that we can't get these applications or these renewable plants within agriculture registered with you. So that is the problem. We're already there, but legislation is holding us back. Then the second question, Chairperson, I'm not clear on what exactly the question are from Mr. Modisi. If you can please help me with the second question. Then the third one is the percentage cost of our inset cost. I did send it last year through to you. How does it escalating from 2008 till 2010? I think it's always also part of Free State Agriculture's presentation. So if there is any further questions around the percentage of energy cost in our production, then we would like to answer that to you and give it with facts. Then in terms of the 490 billion debt and the growth of asset, that is not the argument. The argument, and it's also in terms of stop capital expenditure. It's just a general financial management fact that when your business, when my farm reach a point where I can't deal with my debt, stop expenditure, stop capital expenditure. First make that you have more cost effective, produce more cost effective, and when that have a positive influence on your cash flow, then you can take a look at capital expenditure furthermore. And I think that principle should be applied within Eskom as well. At some point or another, you must what is the correct way to put it? You must honor the economic principles of your business. And it seems to me that at Eskom think they have the backup of government to bail them out. The problem is that government is reliable on taxpayers' money, and that is not in abundant on the stage. So they have also limitations. So Eskom have to find a way to fix the problem themselves, to make this once a cost-effective company cost-effective again. We have to solve this problem within Eskom, maybe by have a new structure and get the future with a new structure in terms of what we need in energy in South Africa and not what is the best for Eskom. We have to think at the bigger picture. And then the last one that I've noted in terms of inflation related, the problem, Chairperson, is that any business who have an inset cost that high above inflation will find it very difficult to adapt to accommodate that cost factor within your business. You will have a sustainable business if you can conquer inflation-related increases in your inset cost. Then you have a sustainable business. But no business can be sustainable if your inset costs have that margin. And that is the problem what we have in agriculture. The growth in the price of the product can't accommodate this out of inflation-related costs. And that is why energy cost is creeping up within our inset cost, as the next presentation will show, and as I sent to you last year when you have the same question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jansen. Just to clarify that you've already touched on the question about the switching part by Mr. Modise. They wanted to just understand, like for instance, the last point that you made. If you say that the inflation is 5% and 6%, and then the increase on the electricity price is 6%, it seems from what you are saying that that could, in your view, be reasonable from your side. But if it were to be 20%, what would you do? Would you be switching? Those kind of details you provide them in writing, as I indicated that there's a set of questions trying to ascertain what consumers would do, how they would react on a 5% or 10% or 15% or 20%. Will they reduce consumption? Will they switch to others? All of those details you can provide them in writing.
In writing?
Yes, in writing.
All right, Chairperson, I will do that.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. All right. We are going to break for lunch, and lunch will be, I see here they've reduced it to 20 minutes, but we can take 25 minutes for lunch so that we don't miss our flights back to Johannesburg. We'll come back here at 25 to 2. Thank you very much.